heard bang, 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 bang. He just walked casually down the sidewalk with the gun in the hand.
Good evening, everyone. Our Action News special coverage continues here at 6 o'clock on a terrible day in the western Pennsylvania community. A series of shootings in Allegheny and Beaver counties that have left 5 people dead and 1 person injured, and we are learning more at this hour.
And the police at Allegheny County Police are going to hold a news conference any moment now at Robinson Town Center, where 2 people were killed. But first, while we are waiting for them to join them live, let's tell you what we know right now. There were 5 separate shootings: Mount Lebanon, Robinson Township, Center Township, Carnegie, and Scott Township late this afternoon. Again, 5 people now dead.
Our Sheldon Ingram has been standing by at the scene where we had the worst loss of life, the Robinson Town Center, an Asian restaurant where 2 people are dead. Let's go to Sheldon now live for more coverage.
Well, Scott, at this moment we're waiting for police, Allegheny County Police, to come over to brief us on the details of the incident. What you're looking at now are the county police officers, a couple of county staff people who are on their way over here momentarily to speak with reporters to give us all the information regarding the shooting. They're standing right in front of the Yafei Chinese restaurant. They just removed the 2 bodies from inside the restaurant within the past half hour. We know that one of the victims is 30-year-old Tao Pham. He was a delivery man for Yafei, and it was his brother inside the restaurant who told us, gave us the identification of his brother at the time. We spoke with him a little earlier this afternoon, and this is what he said during the interview.
I in the kitchen, I cooking, and somebody go inside, told me, where the Joe? Ask my friend, where the Joe? Somebody outside shoot outside. I just hear that. And I go outside, I see what happened. I just go outside, I see my brother on floor already.
Now, as we know right now, based on that interview from Ben Trung, it's 30-year-old Tao Pham who was killed inside the restaurant, along with the second person whose identity has not yet been released. But we're waiting for that information as well as other details to come from Allegheny County Police. There they are, standing just over in the parking lot, preparing to come over. We were told about an hour ago that they would brief us promptly at 6 o'clock. They're positioning themselves to get that information together and to deliver it to us as to all that they have gathered up to this hour. They're making their way over here right now, led by the County Communications Director, Margaret Feldman, the head people in the Allegheny County Homicide Department, as well as Robinson Township police officers. So let's listen in right now on this briefing on the details they have here in the Yafei Chinese cuisine.
Who's going to do the dog? Your name real quick? Paul Wolf, W-O-L-F.
Okay, we have Paul Wolf that's going to do the interview. Paul Wolf with the county police. Go ahead, Paul.
Acting Superintendent.
Acting Superintendent.
Okay. We ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Today the county police were called around 2 o'clock and began investigating a series of events that occurred in Mount Lebanon, in Scott Township, Carnegie, and Robinson Township, whereby an individual had fired shots, had shot several people, and had escaped to Beaver County. He was subsequently arrested in Ambridge. It was later discovered that a body in Center Township, which is being investigated by the Center Township Police and the Pennsylvania State Police. We began investigating in Scott Township. We had a shooting and swastikas painted on a synagogue, and also at a Jewish center in Carnegie. At an Indian grocery store in Scott Township, there was 2 persons, both males, Indian, were found shot. They're both being treated in local hospitals. One is in very poor condition at Allegheny General, the other one in serious condition at Mercy Hospital. There was also in Mount Lebanon a fire. The officers went to the scene of the fire and found a woman shot Officers are investigating there. Up here at Robinson Town Center, officers found 2 persons, both Oriental, in the restaurant. They were both shot and are deceased. Investigation is continuing along several lines. One, the murder investigation, and also the investigation of the shootings. It is believed that the suspect, who is presently incarcerated in the jail in Butler and Beaver County,
This is live coverage, yes, and sometimes live coverage things can happen. A cable can become disconnected, and we're going to try and get back our connection to that police news conference at Robinson Town Center here very shortly, as we're getting the first official account from police about exactly what happened, which does match pretty much what we've known about this sequence that has left 5 people dead, and that would be one point of information. I don't think even the police at the scene had been given the word. He said that the man who had been shot at the Indian Grocery, who was in, as he said, very poor condition at Allegheny General Hospital. We did get confirmation in the last 15 minutes that that man has also died, a 30-year-old man.
And this is a vast shooting spree for those of you just joining us. It started in Mount Lebanon, 1 dead in Mount Lebanon, 2 dead in Robinson Township, 1 dead in Center Township in Beaver County, and we have learned the 5th victim has died, and we believe that happened in Scott Township at the India Grocer.
We're learning more about the suspect in this case, 34-year-old Richard Baumhammers, a man who, at least on the internet, to people that he was communicating with, claimed to be an attorney of some kind, who may have lived on and off with his mother and father there in their very nice Mount Lebanon neighborhood. But we've not, we've asked our Paul Van Osdale from our Team 4 investigative unit to check in to see what more we can learn about this person, and he joins us now. Paul.
Scott, we really don't know a lot right now about Richard Baumhammers. All we know really is that he's an international attorney. He was working and living apparently up in Beaver County. He is the son of a prominent dentist in Pittsburgh, Andres Baumhammers, who's a native of Austria, with offices in Oakland and who lives in Mount Lebanon. Richard Baumhammers, we know, has lived in Atlanta, Sacramento, California, Kent, Ohio, and Birmingham, Alabama. And really, that is all we really know about him at this point. Very limited information. We don't know about his criminal record, if he has one or not, but we're certainly trying to find that information out.
But you have confirmed he is an attorney?
Yes, yes.
And when you say he's worked in Beaver County, that might explain why he had gone from the location Robinson Town Center out toward that Center Township area.
Yeah, that could explain that, Scott. And again, he was actually registered with the Bar Association down in Atlanta as an international attorney there. So that's one clue that we have as to the fact that this man has been of some prominence as an attorney in the past, and he has moved around quite a bit, though, so we don't know exactly how long he's been in the area and what his relationship is here to the area, other than through his father.
I understand. Well, we will continue to check into his background. We thank you from that. We do have, if you're just joining us, kind of a little more information geographically to kind of get you centered about what has happened here on an afternoon. Our coverage has gone on here now live for more than 3 hours as we've seen the devastation on these communities in Allegheny County and Beaver County. It all seemed to have started here in Mount Lebanon, and you see at the bottom of your screen in the middle Elm Spring, that being the first location where we have a home where fire broke out. The fire crews came onto the scene, and they not only found a fire, they found a body, the body of a woman in her 60s, and that was the very first of the victims, the 5 victims killed today.
That's right, Scott. Then we're told that 2 people were shot dead at the Yafe restaurant. That's in Robinson Township. But before we do that, let's take you back to Elm Street where you said it all started. John Greiner is live there. He's been covering that aspect. This all started there with a house fire, and then a victim was found inside of that house, John.
Let me set the scene for you, Michelle. It is the house that is sort of covered by the foliage. It's the 3rd one in. You see the yellow tape there. The 2nd house in is actually the Baumhammer house. That is where apparently Richard's parents live, the doctor, as you mentioned, and his wife. And Richard was there on and off quite a bit. The woman was killed in the next house over. There's sort of a white post or a stake. It's the house beyond that. And the fire was we understand that she was shot. We've not confirmed that, but we understand the fire was set after that. And we've been talking with some folks here about Mr. Baumhammer, the younger Baumhammer, and what we know is that he chatted to a couple of neighbors online, a 21-year-old and a 15-year-old girl, and told them about his life, that he was an international attorney, that he would like to meet them, what he liked, what he didn't like. They said he seemed like a nice guy, although they didn't meet him in person. Coincidentally, or perhaps not so coincidentally, the two young women are Jewish, and the victim is Jewish, the woman in her 60s. By all accounts, a woman liked very much here in the neighborhood and in the community and in her synagogue. And right now, I have to tell you that the street is not exactly deserted, but people are going on with their daily lives, as certainly will happen in cases like this. Our efforts to find out a little bit more about the suspect are put on hold right now. We'll keep trying, and of course, we'll have more as the hour goes on. Scott and Michelle.
John, let me ask you just one question. You talked to the woman who had been communicating to Richard Baumhammers online, and she said that at first she actually did think that he himself was Jewish, and later that she learned that he was not. Do we know if maybe he was perhaps of Jewish ethnicity just in background, but maybe not in religious practice?
That's something I don't know. The only thing I know is what she told us when we did the interview. It said at first she thought he was Jewish, but she found out that was not the case. And other than that, Scott, I'm afraid I can't help you out. We're trying to find out as much as we can about him, but that has not been one of the things we've been able to confirm so far.
I do appreciate that, John. What we did learn from the young woman when John talked to her earlier was that she herself was startled because she is a part of that congregation where the suspect had gone on and then painted those swastikas. Let's go back now live to Robinson Town Center. We've just reestablished our connection to the news conference there.
In Mount Lebanon is white. The two victims in Scott Township are Indian, and the two victims here are Oriental, and the one victim in Beaver County is black, I believe.
Do you have a criminal record?
We have no information on a criminal record.
Which synagogue were the swastikas?
This Bethel congregation?
No swastikas at the Carnegie Synagogue?
Not that I know of.
The windows shot out of the Bethel?
Yes.
Had there been any kind of domestic call or anything else for this involving this gentleman earlier in the day or earlier this week?
I don't believe so.
I don't want to draw any bad conclusions here, but Ron Taylor set his apartment on fire before he went on a shooting spree in Wilkinsburg. At this point, do you have any reason to believe that there's a connection?
Sheldon.
Fires from going on a shooting spree and what happened in Wilkinsburg?
No. There's no connection between the two. Anything else? The FBI is involved.
The FBI here, can they talk to us?
Pardon me?
The FBI here, can they talk to us?
I don't know that the FBI will talk to you. Sure. Will you talk to them? Okay.
Your name?
Jeff Killeen.
Sorry, your name, sir?
Jeff Killeen.
Jeff Killeen.
Correct. It's Killeen.
And you're in the Pittsburgh FBI office?
That's correct.
Does this look like a crime? Is that why the FBI is?
Right now, the FBI is looking into this entire event to determine whether or not anyone's civil rights have been violated. Right off the bat, we have two houses of worship that were seemingly attacked, and this may impact on federal civil rights laws.
So you don't term it as hate crime, but a violation of civil rights?
At this time, we're looking at it as a civil rights crime, or a potential civil rights crime.
What about the others involved, though? They were all active?
Really, it's in the infancy of any investigation right now. We are deploying agents to many of the scenes where the violence occurred. We're trying to do all the background we can. We're trying to get our investigative feet on the ground, so to speak.
Agent, will you be back at the press conference this evening?
There will be a representative of the FBI at the conference.
Jeff, I want to ask you again, we were kind of turned away from you before. Are you considering this to be a racially based crime at this point, and what are you using as the basis?
Right now, we're at the very infancy of this event as far as an investigation is concerned. We're deploying resources. We have considerable resources developed so far and devoted to this investigation. The investigation is obviously going to take some time. Right now, we're looking strictly at this point in time to determine whether or not someone's civil rights were violated. And that is the federal jurisdictional nexus at this time.
All the victims are minorities, so one could make an easy assumption that they are victims of a hate crime. Can you comment on that?
The jurisdiction of the FBI is limited. Just because someone may term an event a hate crime does not necessarily mean it will fall into a jurisdictional statute that the FBI investigates. Again, we're at the very infancy of this. We're looking at all possible angles. We're deploying considerable resources, and we're, of course, conducting this investigation with a number of other law enforcement agencies, to include county police, local police, and I believe state police as well.
Are there additional charges? You say civil rights violations and then hate crimes. Are they separate charges?
Right now, we're looking at a civil rights statute or a number of civil rights statutes that may be impacted by this event. So that's where we are right now, is on the civil rights angle.
Are you just looking at the civil rights angle as far as the synagogues go?
Right now, this is in its infancy, and we're looking at every investigative angle to determine whether or not we have jurisdiction, and then from there we'll go forward to conduct any logical investigation that needs to be done.
Has the suspect said anything to police yet?
No, the suspect has not wished to talk with the police.
What does do you know anything about the suspects?
All right, we are learning more about the crimes that have occurred in our community this afternoon. 5 people killed and 1 person wounded. And as this news conference continues, our Sheldon Ingram will continue to monitor it. He's going to summarize for us in just a moment. But as we finished hearing from Jeff Killeen of the FBI about the racial ramifications, the hate crime ramifications, this is a good point to turn to the next part of our coverage.
That's right. For those of you just joining us, 5 people dead, and here is their descent: Jewish descent, Indian descent, Oriental descent, and African American, and that's why we are focusing on a possible hate crime motive. For more on that, let's turn now to Nina Pineda live in the studio. Nina?
Michelle, as we could just see from Jeff Killeen there, they are very hesitant to characterize this as a hate crime. He did say with the FBI they have to gather certain evidence to be able to prove that. They have to determine if a federal statute has been violated, because hate crimes and terroristic acts are outlawed. The suspect could be facing a whole host of other violations. And Killeen did say that it's very rare that a place of worship is desecrated, much less shot at. He said it's the worst case he's seen in this area of temples being targeted. They are looking at vandalism relating to ethnic defamation and intimidation because of the swastikas painted on the temple walls there. Also, the ethnicity of the other victims who were targeted, the Asian victims at the restaurant and the karate school. We did speak tonight with the rabbi of Temple Bethel in Scott Township, and despite the front door of that temple being shattered, they are having services this evening for Jewish Shabbat, which begins any moment now at sundown. He told the congregation tonight to please be vigilant like Jews in earlier times, to go on in their way in the face of this hatred and renew their commitment to their distinctive traditions and take pride in their identity. He has also said, Michelle and Scott, that he's never heard any complaints or any sort of antagonistic behavior towards anyone in that community before this incident. And FBI agents are probably in the process right now of obtaining a search warrant for that suspect's home, because what they have to do is they have to go into that home. And we talked to experts. This is what they'll have to prove. They'll have to look for literature, books, magazines, videos, anything that deals with something being discriminatory in nature, relating to a hatred of people based on their religion, their race, or their ethnic background. That seems to be what's going to be important to prove if they're going to characterize this as a hate crime. It seems on the face of this that the shootings were not random, the people being of Jewish descent, the people being of Indian and Asian descent, but they are going to have to prove that, and it looks like specific types of people were targeted, but we'll have to wait and see, as Jeff Killeen said in that news conference that Sheldon was covering, if they'll say if this is a hate crime or not. Back to you.
All right, Nina, thank you very much. And as Nina said, they are trying to obtain a search warrant right now to search the suspect's home. He is 34-year-old Richard Baumhammers. And for the latest on him, let's turn now to Sally Wiggins. She's live in the newsroom. Sally, you have new information for us.
That's right, Michelle. We're trying to get a picture of this gentleman who is the suspect. We do know, as you have already said, he was an international attorney, but it seems he specialized in import-export law and in, ironically, immigration law. Son of a dentist, Andres Baumhammers of Mount Lebanon, and as John Greiner has reported, the home, the address that we've been giving seems to be that of his parents. Also, the suspect lived in Atlanta, Sacramento, Kent, Ohio, and Birmingham, Alabama, so quite a number of places in his adult life. Also, probably, we seem to think, no, actually the report is, let's say this, of Latvian ancestry, but there has been another report that his family is from Austria, so we're going to try and sort that out. I've been talking to some of the neighbors on the phone, and there is another report, unconfirmed, please let me underscore that, an unconfirmed report that there may have been a connection between Baumhammers and the family of the victim found on Elm Spring Road. We have not confirmed that. It's coming from neighbors who are in shock over this and trying to figure out why he would have gone to that home, and allegedly. So right now, that's the information we have on the suspect in custody. Scott, Michelle?
All right, Sally Wiggin, we do appreciate that as we're learning more about Richard Baumhammers, the suspect who we did learn in the police news conference at Robinson Town Center. And it was a kind of a quiet question, and he answered it very briefly, so maybe if you didn't hear it, Sheldon asked, has he said anything to police? And we heard from them, he doesn't want to say anything to police, and he himself is an attorney, so we're not getting very much from the suspect himself.
And Sally talked about where this whole thing started on Elm Spring Road in Mount Lebanon. A little while later, there was an incident at Scott Township at the India Grocer. Our Susan Copen is on the scene there, and she's got information for us. We know that there were how many victims shot at this India Grocer, Susan?
There were 2 people who were shot inside the Indian grocery store. We understand it was a customer and also the brother-in-law of the owner. And I am joined now by Kishar Pakarna, who is a friend of the family that owns that grocery store. And you said you were just devastated by this news.
Yes, I'm surprised and shocked with this news, and amazing that this happened to our community. Basically, our Indian people are non-violent. We believe in peace, and we never believe in conflict or fight with anybody, especially when you are in foreign country. We have to be very careful when you deal with people. And our community as such, we are involved in so many social activities and try to help people. And this happened to our community, our person. It's very sad news.
The owner of the shop is Vijay Patel. Did he or his family have any enemies, any reason why someone would walk directly into his shop and open fire?
I don't think so. They're very polite people, very religious people, and I know them personally, so I don't think so they will argue or have any conflicts with anybody. I'm very surprised and shocked with this news.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us today. Once again, in the Scott Town Center, 2 people were shot inside an Indian grocery store, and what we have heard from witnesses, the shooter in this case, pulled up in his Jeep and got out of his car and walked directly into this Indian grocery store and opened fire. Approximately 5 to 6 shots, walked out and drove away. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Susan, thank you there from the India grocery location. And of course, what we do know about the victims there, both were taken to Pittsburgh hospitals, one flown to Allegheny General, one taken to Mercy Hospital, and then the sad news that one of those men shot at that India grocery has since died, he becoming the 5th victim killed.
And Mike Clark joins us now live, and he has some comments from the Anti-Defamation League. And one thing specifically to talk about are these shootings at the synagogues. Nobody injured at either synagogue. One was vacant, one in Scott Township, but swastikas painted on the glass doors and then shot out.
At least 2 swastikas found on Temple Bethel, and the ADL has this comment tonight from Cleveland. Once again, they say hatred and violence have reared their ugly heads in the Pittsburgh area. The ADL raises its voice tonight to condemn the hatred and violence in any form. Violence, when the manifestation of hate, is particularly devastating to all of us in each of our communities. Although today's facts, if today's shootings are still being established, the suspect, Richard Baumhammers, has been described as being cool and calm by at least one eyewitness. People who are so eaten by hate that they are driven to shoot at synagogues and kill people based on ethnicity and race destroy the fabric of our society. Earlier today, we talked to Joel Ratner live on our air from the ADL here in Pittsburgh. He says that we condemn the violent attacks on our synagogues and murders of innocent people. Violence based on hatred must stop, and people must learn to live with one another. Our communities need to be nurtured and not to be torn apart. Our condolences go out to the families of those killed. You are looking at the pictures right now of Temple Beth-El. The synagogue walls and windows will be repaired, and the fear that those shootings have endangered will be soothed, Ratner says. But the deaths cannot be undone, and the hate that fueled them will only escalate into more hate. There is a four-letter word which can be used to fight hate. He says that word is stop. So that is the reaction tonight from the Anti-Defamation League throughout the country. We are gathering more information and talking to Rabbi Scheinlin at Temple Beth-El tonight. We'll have more, of course, on this tonight.
All right, Mike, thanks. And of course, the thing that we learned from Sally Wiggin there that was so disturbing on top of all of this is that he was not only a man who claimed to be an attorney, but an attorney who specialized in immigration law, someone who lived in communities all across this country, Atlanta, Sacramento, and then back here and may have been working out of Beaver County.
Again, 5 dead, and when you talk about hate crimes, this is one reason that we're looking toward a hate crime. Here are the victims. One is of Jewish descent, Indian descent, Asian descent, and American descent. 5 dead.
Sheldon Ingram is standing by live. He has been following that police news conference at Robinson Town Center. And Sheldon, maybe you can kind of sort through all of the information and kind of give us the summary of the most important points here.
Yes, Scott, we heard from both the county police as well as the FBI. First of all, starting with the county police and surmising what they said to us is, first of all, that the suspect that they arrested has absolutely nothing to say, and they do have an inkling, or they believe that this might be a hate crime. They say that all of the people are of a certain ethnic background. You're talking about the people shot inside the places of worship, the 2 people here shot and killed outside of the Oriental restaurant. They also, the FBI say that they'll be investigating this to see if individual civil rights have been violated. Now, the FBI is staying away from that phrase, hate crime, if you will. That's a term that's been used throughout the afternoon, but the FBI is looking at civil rights violations that may have been violated, the victims' rights being violated, and under that statute of civil rights violations would come a measure that addresses the hate crime issue. But the FBI is staying away from that term as we know it. The county police did confirm for us that there are 2 people dead who were shot and killed inside of the restaurant behind me. Both of them are Asian. One we know is a delivery man who is working for the restaurant. The other person, we still have not yet gotten his identity. Now, county police also told us that they will brief us again between the hour of 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock tonight to have more details. They pretty much outlined the pathway of the gunman throughout the afternoon, from the first incident to the last, and where they caught up to him. But right now they do not have an official motive, only based on what they've seen, based on the swastikas and based on the victims who were gunned down, that they can try to follow this as a hate crime. But officially, police are not releasing that as their official motive just yet. Back to you in the studio.
And Sheldon, I wanted to ask you too, we know the suspect is in custody, 34-year-old Richard Baumhammers. He said nothing to police so far that you know of?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
Yeah, I wondered about the suspect, 34-year-old Richard Baumhammers. He said nothing to police?
Yeah, you're right, Michelle. We asked that question about 2 or 3 times of county detectives. They said that he has said absolutely nothing to police. In fact, the quote from one of the detectives is that he does not want to speak to police.
All right, Sheldon Ingram reporting live from Robinson Town Center. Thanks very much, Sheldon.
And I guess that the thing that is so disturbing about this and all of this is that as it comes at the end of the Easter season, the end of the week of Passover, and today as Orthodox Easter begins, at a time when all of these communities are looking to think about renewal and peace, and even now, 25 years after the war in Vietnam, about our connection to Asian countries and this country as a point of a melting pot, that a young attorney, an attorney who specializes in immigration, might be now suspect in charge with such a series of violent and devastating crimes.
5 dead, stretching from Mount Lebanon to Center Township in Beaver County. We did just get word that the Center for Victims of Violent Crime is open 24 hours for anyone who needs help dealing with this.
Live coverage throughout the evening. We'll break in with bulletins. Join us again throughout the evening.
On World News Tonight this Friday, the political carnage
is WTAE-TV Pittsburgh.
good evening. Just 2 months after the terror in Wilkinsburg, another apparent hate crime has rocked our area.
A cross-county shooting spree that has left 5 dead and several injured. Police say this all started in Mount Lebanon at 1:45 with a small fire at a house on Elm Spring Road. When firefighters arrived, they found a woman shot dead inside. From that house, the suspect then headed a few miles away to Scott Township. That's where he's believed to have spray-painted swastikas on the Bethel Synagogue on Cochran Road. He then opened fire. No one was injured. The gunman then got on Green Tree Road and headed to Carnegie. That's where he opened fire at the Indian Grocers in Scott Town Center. 1 man was killed, 1 injured. The suspect continued on Green Tree to Forsyth and shot at the Ahavath Achim Synagogue in Carnegie. The synagogue was vacant. He headed to Robinson Town Center next and opened fire inside the Yai-Fei restaurant, killing 2 people. 1 other person was critically injured. Police believe he then jumped on the parkway and headed to Center Township, Beaver County. That's where he shot a male student at the C.S. Kim Karate Center, killing him. Police finally arrested the suspect, 34-year-old Richard Baumhammers, at 3:15 on the Ambridge-Aliquippa Bridge. We have live team coverage with reporters in Allegheny and Beaver County. So let's begin with Sheldon Ingram live at County Police Headquarters with the late-breaking information from a police press conference that just concluded a while ago, Sheldon.
Yes, Sally, they started this news conference promptly at 10 o'clock and ended not too long ago. At this hour, investigators, they're still interviewing witnesses at all of the sites that you mentioned to try to get a handle on exactly what happened. Right now, they say Richard Baumhammer is only charged with the 1 shooting.
Why is he charged with the 1 shooting right now?
Well, because he was captured in Beaver County, and Beaver County has jurisdiction over him at this particular time.
Is there any physical evidence linking him to the other shootings right now?
The investigation is continuing. We're confident that this person will be charged by Allegheny County authorities in the near future.
What was he doing at the time of the arrest, and where was he?
I have information that he was in his car and that the Aliquippa police and Ambridge police arrested him in that vehicle.
Was he sitting there? Was he on a cell phone? Was he trying to hide from police?
I don't have that information.
What kind of background do you have on Mr. Baumhammer right now?
The only background that I have on him is that he is a lawyer and that he hasn't worked for a while.
Now, that's Acting Superintendent for County Police Paul Wolf giving the information, all of the rundown on what they know at this hour on Baumhammer. Now, earlier today, he was in Robinson Town Center where police say he shot up the Yai-Fei restaurant where 2 Asian men were shot and killed. We were there throughout the afternoon, right after the shooting, and this is what the scene looked like when police took over. Investigators carried the 2 Asian shooting victims away as their relatives stood by in shock and horror. Then Trong told me he was cooking in the kitchen of the Yai-Fei restaurant when the shooting occurred. He didn't see nor hear the gunfire. He only saw his brother, Tao Pham, laying in a pool of blood.
I in the kitchen, I cooking, and somebody go inside, told me, where the Joe? Out of my fan. Where the Joe? Somebody outside shoot outside. I just hear that, and I go outside. I see what happened. I just go outside. I see my brother on floor already.
He was dead?
Yeah, I don't know what that or not.
But he was shot?
Yeah, we shot already.
It's clear to police that people of certain ethnic backgrounds were singled out, but they're still trying to figure out why the gunman picked out specific locations for his killing field.
You know why he singled out the places he did?
We have no information on that. That is part of the investigation.
Now, police also say that Baumhammer has yet to give them any information, any clue as to what his motive might have been for the 1 shooting he is charged with right now. They did say, however, that he has requested an attorney to take over this case for him. Right now, police are not releasing the names of the shooting victims until they can notify all of the next of kin. That's the latest from Point Breeze. Reporting live, Sheldon Ingram, back to you in the studio.
Hopefully a lot of these questions will be answered in the coming days. Thanks, Sheldon. Mike.
Let's bring in Shannon Perai now, live in Beaver County with details on the suspect's arrest and his arraignment. Shannon, we were looking at pictures of a very calm Richard Baumhammers tonight.
Yeah, calm has been how he is described all day long. That was the same this evening. Right now, we're live at the Beaver County Jail. This is where Richard Baumhammers is tonight. Earlier, he was arraigned in Beaver County on charges of criminal homicide and reckless endangerment, only the Beaver County charges. I want to set the scene for you a little bit. In a second, you're going to see pictures of him going into and coming out of his formal arraignment. What you can't see is inside that formal arraignment. Cameras are not allowed inside. Normally, a district justice's courtroom is just that, a courtroom accommodating a dozen or 2 dozen people. That was not the case tonight. The district justice decided to have this arraignment inside his personal office. It was about 5 by 8 feet large, very small. 7 reporters, including myself, Richard Baumhammers, a couple of detectives, the chief of police, and the district justice were the only people in that room, very small. I myself sat about a foot or less away from the suspect as he answered questions from the district justice. Simple yes, simple no. He acted very much like an attorney, again, representing himself as far as we know at this point. He was not accompanied by another attorney. We want to point out again that the charges he's been arraigned on are only the charges in Beaver County: criminal homicide and reckless endangerment at this point. What do you have to say to the victims and their families? Stone-faced, Richard Baumhammers has nothing to say to anyone. Eyes distant, almost a smirk on his face, he strolls into his formal arraignment. Outside, people gather to see the alleged killer. They came for different reasons.
See, I want to see it closer for myself. That's what I wanted to see. I was kind of shocked because when I seen it, it kind of scared me. You know, it kind of made me numb.
Like he had no remorse. Like it wasn't no big thing about it.
As police prepare to take him to jail, Baumhammers waits inside. An officer asks him casually if he ever played football. In high school, he said, with a smile on his face. Offensive end. As he heads to jail, angry shouts from angry bystanders, but no reaction from Richard Baumhammers. I was just told a few minutes ago that Richard Baumhammers did see a psychologist or a psychiatrist here at the jail tonight, and also that he's being held in a special section of jail called The Glass. That's where authorities can keep a very close eye on him tonight. We're going to have much more coming up at 11:30. Reporting live in Beaver County, I'm Shannon Perrine. Back to you.
All right, Shannon, thank you very much. Right now we have a list, the final list of the 5 victims shot and killed.
That's right, Mike. 5 people are dead tonight. 63-year-old Anita Gordon of Mount Lebanon, 27-year-old Tao Pham, who worked at the Yai-Fei restaurant, 34-year-old Ji Ye-sun, manager at the restaurant, an unidentified 31-year-old man at the Indian grocer who is from India, and 22-year-old Gary Lee of Aliquippa, shot at the karate studio. Sandeep Patel remains in critical condition from a gunshot wound tonight. So let's begin with John Greiner, where it all started in Mount Lebanon. What they must be saying tonight there on that street, John.
Indeed, Sally. It all started about 1:45 this afternoon here on Elm Spring Road in Mount Lebanon, when the first victim in this homicide chain was killed. Rushing to answer a smoke alarm at a home on Elm Spring Road, firefighters found a woman shot dead inside.
Initially thought it was a fire victim. When some clues pointed to the fact that it wasn't, then we backed out and turned the house over to the police.
As relatives and friends learned of the death of Anita Gordon, everyone asked the same question. Why? Perhaps only because she was Jewish.
She's a very nice lady, and I don't understand what happened. I don't know who did it. If they did it, I honestly hope that they get their just deserves, because it's not fair.
Police charged her former neighbor with Miss Gordon's death, 34-year-old Richard Baumhammers, seen here in his Mount Lebanon high school yearbook photo. The home actually belongs to Baumhammers' father, a prominent dentist here in Mount Lebanon, but he spent a lot of time there, and among the things he did there apparently was to chat online with some others in the neighborhood. He chatted with Sheila Grenadier's 15 and 21-year-old daughters, but gave no clue of his apparent anger.
He was always pleasant and never said anything that derogatory about anybody, was always, extremely nice.
Baumhammers talked online about wanting to meet 21-year-old Shannon Grenadier, who's glad that never happened.
It scares me. I mean, especially, I'm Jewish, and it just, I never thought this would ever happen here. And it just, I don't know, it scares me.
Now, I spoke to someone who went to high school with Baumhammers, and they said he was sort of a bully. But I spoke to someone who went to college with him, and they told me that he was pretty studious. Apparently, he could be whatever it was he wanted to be that day. Allegedly today, he wanted to be a killer. Live in Mount Lebanon, John Greiner, Channel 4 Action News. Mike.
Chilling, John. The Jewish community is coming together in prayer tonight.
That's right, Sally. Members throughout the Pittsburgh area are offering their prayers for the victims and their families. The gun violence struck the heart of 2 Jewish worship sites. In the first location, bullets blasting through the glass front doors here at the Beth El congregation in Scott Township. Swastikas spray painted on the building as well. No one was hurt here. The 300 students who attend school here were off on their Passover vacation break. The other synagogue fired upon was the Temple Avahath Akim here on 4th Site off of Green Tree Road. No one here was injured. Luckily, we're told the building was vacant at the time of the shooting. Violence, though, comes as Jews throughout our area prepare to observe their Sabbath day services. And tonight, 2 synagogues joined together for a service of healing. Our Michelle Wright is live in Green Tree with reaction on that. Michelle?
Yeah, we are just down the street, Mike, from the Beth El Synagogue. And I have to tell you, most of the members, when they came to services tonight, had been watching the news throughout the day. They knew to expect the shot-out glass and broken glass everywhere and the swastikas painted on the side of the synagogue. But there was one thing that most of them did not know, and that piece of news was even more devastating. The swastika on the outside of the synagogue and all of the shattered glass was just heartbreaking for Beth El members. But actually, it was the news they heard once they were inside that was much, much worse. An active member, Nikki Gordon, was one of the victims.
Glass and walls can be cleaned. This is not repairable.
Some of Gordon's friends watching news coverage put the pieces together.
She was a very good friend of mine. And of course on the news it didn't say what her name was, but we saw the aerial view of the house and I knew it was her. And she was one of the most beautiful people.
Members tried to deal with the shocking news. A young mother whose son goes to preschool here.
We don't come every Friday night. And this made us want to come. It made us want to be more observant. It made us think about who we are and why we do what we do, and it made us want to come tonight, and maybe we're going to come more frequently now.
A father whose son works here.
It's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. You never know when you send someone off to work whether they'll come home. You don't think about it, but it's pretty frightening.
And synagogue leaders say the message here is now unity.
You go forward, and as you look around, what you're going to see is the Jewish community coming together, as it does in times such as these. And we will have services this evening, we will have services tomorrow, we will go forward.
Our cameras were not allowed inside of the services, but the rabbi told the members of the congregation it is a time to pull together. And I also want you to know it wasn't just the Beth El members. Also, nearby Temple Emmanuel members came as a show of support. And I also talked to several non-Jewish members of the community who came just to show their support. Tonight, all of the glass has been replaced. The swastika is now gone from the outside of Beth El Synagogue, but it will take a long, long time for the emotional scars to heal from all this. Live in Green Tree, Michelle Wright, Channel 4 Action News. Mike?
All right, Michelle, thank you. 2 people were shot at the Indian grocer in Scott Township. 1 killed. That person, we are told, is from India. His identity is being withheld until his family has been notified.
The other victim, Sandeep Patel, is in critical condition tonight. Susan Copen is live in Scott Township with reaction there. Susan?
Well, Sally, the family of Sandeep Patel is with him tonight at Mercy Hospital. A family friend tells me that he is paralyzed. A bullet went through his spinal cord, but doctors did tell the family that he is out of danger and should survive. His brother-in-law owns the shop behind me where the shooting happened. The devastating news: a woman learns her brother has been shot inside the family business, along with a customer. It happened at this Indian grocery store in Scott Town Center.
These people are great. I mean, I've never had a day of problem. They're wonderful people, super people.
Friends say the family had no enemies, but it appears the shooter knew exactly where he was going. Witnesses say the shooter parked his Jeep about 100 feet away and then walked directly into the Indian grocery store. Once inside, the shooter opened fire. The travel agent next door heard the shots and saw the gunman leave the scene.
I was just rather amazed at the fact that how calmly this guy was walking by. So calm to the point that my initial thought was that a toy gun? with him walking by. I mean, you would think if somebody was doing the shooting like that, they could be running or fleeing the scene, but he was very calm about the whole thing.
The shootings are a devastating blow to the Indian community.
I was shocked and surprised that this happened, and I'm very sad this happened to our community. In a matter of fact, to anybody, this should not have happened.
You can see the sign in the door of the Indian grocery store. It says closed, but many people have been coming here tonight looking for answers. They had a lot of questions about what happened to their friends who work in that store, what happened to the friend who shops in that store. And unfortunately, we had to tell those people tonight that one person was paralyzed and another person was killed. Reporting live, I'm Susan Copen, Channel 4 Action News.
All right, thanks very much, Susan.
Keep it right here on Channel 4 for continuing coverage. Was this a hate crime? And if it was, what does it mean to the case?
Nina Pineda is working on that part of the story, and that's coming up next.
And coming up a little later, tons of trouble on the road. Team 4 investigates the unsafe trucking companies. We've got a live look downtown from our action cam. It is a nice night in the Berg weather-wise. See any sunshine for the weekend? Meteorologist Stephen Cropper is working on your weekend DiNardo forecast, so please stay with us. Or Asians. So will this be considered a hate crime?
As we saw in the Wilkinsburg shooting back in March, the shootings were not all random. Let's bring in Nina Pineda now live in the newsroom with more. Nina, the FBI is involved in this case.
Yes, it is, Mike, and it may seem to some that a hate crime charge would be apparent. But for federal charges, FBI agents have to clearly show that these victims were targeted specifically because of their race, religion, or ethnic origin.
The swastikas painted on the walls of the Jewish synagogue and the targeting or intimidation of certain ethnic groups will have to be proven to categorize the rampage as a hate crime. One FBI agent said this is the worst case he's seen in his area of certain groups being targeted. And right now they're only looking at civil rights violations. But the Anti-Defamation League was quick to respond with what it sees as a hate crime, releasing these words decrying the acts. Once again, hatred and violence have reared their ugly heads in Pittsburgh. The Anti-Defamation League raises its voice to condemn hatred and violence in any form. And the deaths cannot be undone. The hate that fueled them will only escalate more hate. And there is a four-letter word which can be used to fight hate. That is stop.
And the hate crime violation has not been clarified yet. Our guest this evening can shed some light on that. He is Larry Victim, an attorney with the Pennsylvania State Attorney General's office. And Mr. Victim, what is the FBI going to be looking for as they're still on the scene trying to gather evidence specifically about the hate crimes?
They are going to be looking into this individual's background to find out if he belonged to any hate groups that targeted particular religions or people of different colors or ethnic origins.
And earlier they had a press conference, and it seemed that the FBI was willing to say these are civil rights violations, but not so much hate crime violations yet. What is the difference there?
And that's because this person targeted Jewish synagogues, he targeted an Indian restaurant, he went to a karate school and apparently saw a person of color at that karate school. So it's apparent that he was targeting people of different religions and different color and ethnic backgrounds.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Victim. We should have more on this later. As you see, it's not that cut and dried. Back to you, Mike and Sally.
All right, Nina, thank you very much. And keep it right here for continuing coverage of the shooting spree. At 11:35, we'll have more live reports from the field and live interviews with reaction. Plus, you can log on to our website right now at thepittsburghchannel.com for up-to-the-minute developments. Turning to the skies right now, what can we expect for the weather this weekend?
Meteorologist Stephen Cropper is working on your updated 24-hour DiNardo Weather Watch forecast. Steve's going to be back in 60 seconds.
Well, a lot to get to tonight. We'll head straight outdoors to Three Rivers Stadium, where we're seeing partly cloudy skies across the area. For the most part today, a stellar day as far as the weather went. 34 the low this morning, not quite as nippy as the night before. 68 the high, 43-65 the normals. Ended up 3 degrees cooler than normal today. Partly cloudy again, 10 miles visibility. Pittsburgh International carrying 55 degrees. Still relatively dry at 38%. Winds are light from the east-southeast. Across the region, we are seeing pretty good numbers coming in. And in fact, tomorrow tomorrow. We should warm up a bit more with winds coming in with the sunshine too. We should bump our numbers up into the mid to upper 60s. 55 now, not as cool as last night at this hour, and it looks like we won't be quite as cold tomorrow morning either. A few clouds around, 2 storms again. We're riding the fence between the two with the next upstream weather maker not doing much. In fact, showers falling apart as they're moving through parts of Illinois, and the call for tomorrow indicates more cloud cover, but it looks like the showers will continue to fizzle as they move through. We're putting the outside chance for a sprinkle in the forecast for tomorrow afternoon. The good news is, as we get into the day Sunday, high pressure returns, and so does the glorious sunshine. 24-hour DiNardo Weather Watch quickly for you. Fair, not as cold tonight. 41 the low. Start you tomorrow with sunshine and 46. A few more clouds during the day, partly cloudy and becoming breezy. High back to 67. And then as we go through tomorrow night, partly cloudy skies, maybe a sprinkle up until about 7 o'clock. 42 the low. Fantastic on Sunday. Mostly sunny, a bit cooler, high temperature at 62. And through the extended forecast, we're back into that pattern of a shower every couple of days. The first chance coming in on Monday with a number at 63, 65 on Tuesday, 70 degrees back on Wednesday. So we continue with a pretty good spring-like forecast. You guys have a good weekend.
All right, you too. Thanks very much, Stephen.
And when we return on Action News, danger on the highway. Tonight, Team 4 investigates the most unsafe trucking companies here in southwestern PA. Don't miss his special report coming up. One of the most dangerous states when motorists go up against large trucks.
Almost 200 people are killed in crashes with big rigs on Pennsylvania highways each year. And as Team 4 investigative reporter Jim Parsons found out that some of the most unsafe trucking companies are going unchecked, Jim.
Absolutely unchecked, Mike and Sally. You know, the number of large trucks on the nation's highways has doubled in the past 10 years, and that number is expected to double again in the next 10. Our Team 4 investigation found that here in western Pennsylvania, a large percentage of trucking companies are sending unsafe rigs onto the highways, while government safety inspectors do little to stop it. Big rigs, they can be terror on wheels if you're driving next to one. And if you think your fear of tragedy with a truck is groundless, think again. Nationally, 5,000 people are killed in crashes with trucks every year. Here in Pennsylvania, 200 die.
My first husband was killed by a truck. My daughter was killed by a truck.
Diane Hutter Stewart of Connellsville is not only a survivor, she's also a former truck driver herself. Now she makes truck safety her business as a consultant to small trucking firms. And she says the government isn't doing enough to keep roads safe.
There's got to be a better way to keep our roads safe than the way they're doing it.
It's an accident waiting to happen.
State Police Corporal Barry Gaston is in charge of roadside truck inspections for the Pittsburgh area.
Okay, turn signal. The other side.
Gaston does hundreds of these a year, and the results are astounding.
We place anywhere from 40 to 45% of the trucks that we inspect out of service. So that's, close to half of the trucks that we look at are out of service.
In fact, the first 2 18-wheelers that Gaston inspects on this day will be taken off the road.
All the brakes are out of adjustment on the truck. So out of 10 possible brakes, he has 6 that are out of adjustment. Obviously, he's out of service, he's done.
When Corporal Gaston or any state trooper anywhere in the U.S. takes an unsafe truck out of service, that record goes into a federal database. Team 4 used the database to check the safety record of more than 300 trucking companies here in western Pennsylvania. The results were not good for safety's sake. 44% of the Pittsburgh area companies we checked had a worse vehicle out-of-service rating than the national average. And the national average is already high. 1 in 4 trucks that are inspected get taken off the road. So what happens to companies that routinely run unsafe trucks?
We go into their place of business and we look at their records.
That's what's supposed to happen, but it rarely does. Why? Because the federal government has only 200 safety inspectors nationwide to deal with 500,000 trucking firms. Here in western Pennsylvania, there are 16,000 carriers, and the number of federal safety inspectors, 4.
We need more federal inspectors across the United States.
National Transportation Safety Board Chairman Jim Hall says recent budget increases at the new Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration are inadequate.
Clearly, the job will not be done with the current level of resources that they have in this new office.
In searching the Federal Inspection Database, Team 4 found some startling numbers. Since 1995, federal transportation agents have inspected only 28% of the Western Pennsylvania trucking firms we checked. And there's something else. Since 1990, only 35% of the companies with unsatisfactory or conditional ratings have been inspected. Cenex Explosives in Cuddy hasn't been inspected since 1981, and it has a conditional safety rating. Inspectors gave Allegheny Pipe and Supply in Coriopolis an unsatisfactory safety rating in 1991, and they haven't been back since. Mostowski Trucking in Fayette County also has an unsatisfactory rating. And even though Mostowski trucks failed 5 out of 8 roadside inspections in the past 2 years, federal inspectors haven't shown up here since 1992. There's only one surefire way for a trucking firm to get inspected: being involved in a fatal accident.
The chances are they're going to be subjected to a compliance review.
But isn't it a little late after somebody's dead?
Well, yes, it is. But we don't have the resources to just go, consistently to everybody.
Diane Hutter Stewart says that answer isn't good enough.
And I see all these little loopholes that the bad guys are getting through because they just aren't paying attention. The government just isn't paying attention.
And even the federal government itself agrees with that assessment. This 1999 Inspector General audit is highly critical of the Transportation Department's truck inspection system. There is, however, some good news. There's recently been an overhaul at the U.S. DOT, and there are new promises of more inspections, tougher enforcement, and stiffer fines. Now, if you'd like to check the safety record of a trucking company, all you need is the name of that company and go to the pittsburghchannel.com. You'll find a link on that website to a government website, and it's very easy. All you need is the name of a trucking company, punch it in, and it'll tell you about a 2-year safety record of that company.
Give us a lot to think about.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
And we'll be right back. In southwestern Pennsylvania, coming on the heels of last month's Wilkinsburg shooting.
There's still lots to sort out tonight. Stay with us for an Action News special report right after this break. We'll have live team coverage.
Channel 4 Action News brought to you by the men and women of General Motors, whose commitment to quality brings you outstanding cars and trucks.
WTAE-TV, Pittsburgh. This is an Action News special report.
Thanks for staying with us. We continue our extended coverage of this afternoon's cross-county shooting spree, and if you're wondering about Nightline, it will follow this special report in its entirety.
Here's what we know. We have in-depth coverage, live team coverage of the day's events. 5 people dead tonight. 63-year-old Anita Gordon of Mount Lebanon. 30-year-old Tao Pam, who worked at the Yai Fei restaurant. 34-year-old Gi Ye Soon, the manager at that restaurant. Also, an unidentified man at the India Grocers who is from India. And 22-year-old Gary Lee of Aliquippa shot at the karate studio. Also, Sandeep Patel remains in critical condition tonight from a gunshot wound he suffered. The suspect in the shooting, 34-year-old Richard Baumhammers, was arraigned earlier tonight.
With new information from Beaver County, let's go back to Bureau Chief Shannon Perrine. Shannon.
Sally, Richard Baumhammers is here at the Beaver County Jail. He was arraigned earlier around 8:40 tonight, only on the charges filed against him in Beaver County. Let's show you the videotape here. You can see the pictures. A crowd of about 50 people was waiting for him when police brought him from the Center Township Police Station to the District Justice's office in Beaver Falls. They shouted at him, tried to get him to react. He only smiled. Really, what he was doing was smirking back at them. At one point, he opened his mouth slightly like he was going to say something, but nothing. The reaction from the crowd after seeing him, scary.
We live in a sick society right now, you know what I mean? Times are changed, especially to know that he's a lawyer, you know what I mean? And a person that's smart, you know what I mean, that could do something like that, want to calm a person on the street. So it kind of shocked me a little bit.
Again, to explain inside the arraignment, normally it's a district justice's courtroom. That was not the case here. It was a very small office, only 7 reporters, including myself. I was about a foot away from him. He answered the judge's questions, yes, no, very cold, didn't have very much to say at all. At one point, he did ask the district justice if he could have his handcuffs removed so that he could make his one phone call. He was denied that. He did not get his handcuffs removed. He made his phone call, and he came here to the Beaver County Jail. No word yet on when he will be arraigned on the Allegheny County charges. We will have more on that. For now, reporting live from Beaver County, I'm Shannon Perrine, Channel 4 Action News. Sally.
Shannon, we noticed that when Baumhammers was arrested tonight, he was wearing a black shirt. When he came out of jail for his arraignment tonight, we noticed that he was wearing a blue vest. Did authorities give him a bulletproof vest?
Yeah, that was a bulletproof vest that was provided to him from the Center Township Police Force. They used those vests. They gave him one of their vests. That was the protection he had on him when he arrived in Beaver Falls for his arraignment.
Shannon, were they just playing it safe, or had there been threats?
As far as we know, there had not been threats. The crowd around the scene there, you can describe it as an angry mob. They were upset. They wanted to see this person up close and personal. They wanted to see what he looked like. They did want to get a reaction from him. We had people yelling he should get the death penalty. All of this well before very much has occurred by the way of the justice system. But yeah, there were no specific threats that we know of, but certainly some angry sentiments.
Understandable. All right. Thanks very much, Shannon. So, who is this smirking suspect, this Richard Baumhammers? And can his history shed any light on the horrific acts he's accused of today?
That's what we want to know. We turn to investigative reporter Paul Van Osdol. He's been looking into Baumhammers' past. Paul, what have you found out about this man?
Well, Mike, much about Baumhammers' recent past is a mystery. Now, we do know he comes from a prominent family. His father is a well-regarded dentist who practices in Oakland and the South Hills. Richard Baumhammers is a 1984 graduate of Mount Lebanon High School. Friends tell us he was a loner. He participated in few activities outside the football team. He graduated from Kent State University and then went on to law school in Birmingham, Alabama, moving on to Sacramento before settling in Atlanta to practice law. The Georgia Bar's website says he was an active member as recently as last month. And we also found Baumhammers on a website for Latvian lawyers practicing outside the small Eastern European country. He describes his expertise as immigration and international law, but it appears he was not active in the local immigration bar. We talked to several immigration lawyers here in Pittsburgh who say they've never heard of Baumhammers. Now, Baumhammers has an email account with America Online, and we found some interesting information on his self-written profile. He says he lives in Pittsburgh and Latvia. He describes his hobby as international travel. As for his favorite quote, "This too shall pass." Now, earlier this evening, I talked with a law school classmate of Baumhammers. He says he got into a fight with the shooting suspect when Baumhammers refused to stop playing a pornographic video in front of several people who found it distasteful. I also reached Baumhammers' sister. She is a doctor in Maryland. She said she did not want to talk about her brother. Live in the newsroom, I'm Paul Van Osdol.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. A tragic, shocking day, of course, one that makes nearly everyone just shake their head and wonder why.
And wonder how it could happen in their hometown, in their backyard. Carnegie Mellon professor Daniel Nagin, who specializes in criminology and public policy, joins us live now. Professor Nagin, even the governor said it. His first words, not again, what seems to be an act of racial hatred and brutality. Is this a trend? People are wondering. I mean, is this a trend that's hitting the Pittsburgh area finally?
Well, I think it's important to understand that these events are fortunately very rare. And for example, in 1998, there were 17,000 homicides in the United States. The FBI does not have a category for shooting sprees, but they do have a category of homicides called for sniper, and there were 16 of them in 1998.
And those are random, right?
Yes,
random shootings, right?
Yes, they are.
Twice now in the past 2 months, violence in Pittsburgh, violent shootings in Pittsburgh make national headlines. What do you say to the people living outside the city looking at Pittsburgh? What is going on here?
Well, this is obviously a great tragedy for everybody involved, but two events is simply not sufficient data for drawing conclusion about there being a trend.
So there just aren't enough. It's too rare to call it a trend.
Exactly.
All right, but two men who apparently may have had mental illness occurrences in their history. Is that a trend in something like this?
Well, I think it's important to keep in mind that we don't know enough about this suspect to think in an informed way to speculate on why he did what he did. But the important risk factors that we do know for this kind of violence are drug and alcohol abuse and a history of violence.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagin.
Thank you.
Well, as we've been saying, this all began in Mount Lebanon, in the community where Richard Baumhammers grew up.
Our John Greiner has spent the day in Mount Lebanon on the scene. He joins us now with new details in the case. John.
Mike, police just opened up the street about 11 o'clock today, and except for our lights and our satellite trucks, you might think that nothing happened here in this exclusive neighborhood of $400,000 and $500,000 homes. But it did happen. This is where it all started at about 1:45 today. Let's show you some video that we took a little while ago as police were wrapping up their investigation, and they were taking evidence out of the house. They did that until just before 11 o'clock tonight. They took out bags and bags of stuff from the suspect's house. Now, we're not sure what was in the bags or if anything in them will offer a clue to the shootings or why the suspect apparently targeted certain racial or ethnic groups. But a woman inside the one house was 63-year-old Anita Gordon. She may have been targeted because she was Jewish. She was the first of the 5 victims to be killed by the man who lived next door to her, or at least his parents did, Richard Baumhammers. Please tell me that this is, as far as they can remember, the first homicide here in Mount Lebanon since the early 1990s. And as I look around this community tonight, and as I've spoken with people walking the streets, they can hardly believe that this happened here, but it looks as though there is no place that's immune from this type of violence today. Live from Mount Lebanon, John Greiner, Channel 4 Action News. Back to you. John, you spent the better part of the last 9 hours there in the neighborhood. Any signs of activity going on at Baumhammers' family's home? Any words from them tonight? No, when I... half an hour ago here, when they opened up the street, Mike, I walked down in front of both the homes, Baumhammers' home and also Anita Gordon's home. It doesn't look as though anyone is at home in either of those two homes. I believe that some of the relatives of the victim did come here, but I'm not sure which of the homes they're staying at there. We've heard nothing from them to this point.
John, any reports that there was a connection between the Baumhammers and the Gordons other than they were just neighbors?
I didn't hear anything like that. We have not been able to speak to the immediate neighbors because the street, as I mentioned, was blocked off until just a while ago, and now I would think that everyone is safe and secure in these homes. That's a question we're going to have to wait at least until tomorrow to find out, Sally.
All right, thanks very much, John.
Right now, we're going to go back to the Allegheny County Police Headquarters, where investigators wrapped up a news conference about an hour ago.
Sheldon Ingram is there now live with more information, Sheldon.
Well, Sally, there were 3 officers involved in the arrest of Richard Baumhammers, and one of them joins me now, Officer James Mann with the Ambridge Police Department. 2 of your officers, yourself and another officer from Ambridge, was there, as well as an officer from Aliquippa. Where were you at the exact time of this arrest?
When the call initially came in, we were at the Ambridge Police Department, myself and Officer Glenn Sovich. And the call came in around 3:16, and it was Officer Fratangeli from the Aliquippa Police Department radioed to us, indicating that he was behind the subject who was involved in the shootings, and that he was coming across the Ambridge Bridge into the Ambridge borough.
At what point did you get out of your patrol car to make the arrest?
We actually it was just a few blocks from the police station on 11th Street, where we stopped the vehicle at the intersection of 11th and Melrose Avenue. As we were traveling down 11th Street, myself and Officer Sovich observed Officer Fratangeli following the suspect's vehicle across Merchant Street and coming straight on towards us.
Now, as you approached Mr. Baumhammers' car, what did he do? What did you say to him?
Well, what we did was we pulled the vehicle in front of his vehicle, and Officer Fratangeli blocked in the back of his vehicle, and we ordered him out of to raise his hands, and we ordered him to shut his vehicle off.
Did you see the weapon that he carried?
There was a revolver that was partially the butt of the revolver was sticking out of the soft-sided leather briefcase on the passenger seat. As I approached him, I could see the weapon sticking out of the briefcase.
And did he say anything to you or any other officer?
The only thing he said to me was he had to unhook his seatbelt. That's the only thing he said. He didn't say anything else after that.
At all?
Nothing.
Okay.
He was stone-faced, basically.
And I take it no injuries occurred during this arrest?
No. Thank God nobody got injured.
Okay, thank you very much, Officer James Mann with the Ambridge Police Department. Thank you for joining us and good work tonight. Earlier this evening, again, the acting county police superintendent, Paul Wolf, briefed reporters on the arrest and all of the details that they have at this time regarding the shootings earlier today. And they're still looking for a motive, and they're still trying to get Mr. Baumhammers to talk to authorities to open up and lead them into whatever it is they're trying to get. And that's the information we have here from police headquarters for the county here in Point Breeze. Sally?
Well,
Sheldon,
thanks very much, Sheldon.
we just heard Officer Mann tell us that the suspect had a revolver sticking out of a briefcase. Earlier tonight, we had reports from police that he also had ammunition inside the vehicle. Indications were that the weapon used in this shooting was either a .38 or a .357. Did police identify what kind of gun was used in this shooting?
Can you identify what kind of gun was used in the shooting?
It was a stainless steel revolver, had rubber grips, and appeared to have about a 4-inch barrel, and I believe it was a .357 Magnum.
Now, earlier this evening, you mentioned that he had ammunition, live ammunition on his person?
After we placed him in custody, we patted him down, and he had live ammunition in both of his front pants pockets.
Okay, thank you very much, Officer Mann. There you have it from Officer Mann. Also, they say that, again, he didn't really say anything to police officers except for the fact that he needed to loosen his seatbelt and then ask for an attorney once he arrived at the jail.
All right, thanks very much, Sheldon. Well, tonight, horror and sadness from the governor of Pennsylvania, who is in California to speak to the Lincoln Club of Northern California. Governor Ridge issued the statement after telephone briefings from the state police commissioner and Allegheny County executive Jim Roddy. The governor's first words, as we've said earlier in this newscast, not again. If this was the racist hate crime it appears to be, then it was not a random attack on innocent people. It was an attack against all of us, in which innocent Pennsylvanians fell. It sought in its violence to divide us by the color of our skin and the nations of our ancestors. Michelle Wright talked to friends of Anita Gordon's tonight. She was the first victim. She was killed in her Mount Lebanon home.
Michelle, an emotional night in that community. How is the community doing tonight?
Well, Mike and Sally, the community is trying to pull together both the Jewish community in Scott Township and the surrounding area. And I also talked to some non-Jewish community members who came just to support what was happening tonight. They came for their regular Friday night services at the Bethel Synagogue in Scott Township. That's on Cochrane Road. A lot of people have been watching the news throughout the afternoon, and they knew that earlier in the day there had been a swastika painted and shots were fired, breaking the glass to the front doors. No one was injured at the Bethel Synagogue. Members knew about that. What they did not know was news that was much, much worse to them. One of their congregation members, Anita Gordon, many people called her Nikki Gordon. She died. She was one of the very first shooting victims today. She was in her early 60s, a very active member at the Bethel Synagogue. A lot of members found out that news tonight, and they were just in total shock. I also want to say that the Temple Emmanuel, also in Scott Township just down the road, came as a show of unity and support. Our cameras were not allowed to go inside of the Friday night services. I was allowed to go in. I sat in and I listened to the rabbi give his condolences to the family and urge the community that it was a time to come together now, that they did need to all pull together, and that's exactly what we saw tonight. And I also want to say that while we were there, we watched the disaster restoration team change the glass in the front doors and take the swastika off of the side of the building, but it will take a very, very long time for the Jewish community in this area to understand exactly what happened and to try to cope. Like I said, one of their members, Anita Gordon, they called her Nikki. She was the first victim, and it's just devastating for them here, Mike and Sally.
Michelle, you talked about coping. Have they set up any hotlines for their congregations, or do they have any meetings going on over the weekend for that purpose?
I'm not aware of anything like that yet, but of course they did want everybody to come together. There were some other hotline numbers that we received in the newsroom earlier today for anybody in any of the areas where these shootings took place where they could call. I'm not aware of anything specifically in the Jewish community in the Scott Township area, but they are going to come together, and they said it's very important that they go forward now and not let this deter the membership. I talked to one young mother who said she normally doesn't even go to services. She wanted to come tonight, that this strengthened her faith, and she wanted wanted her young son, who was 2.5, to come and to have a strong background on just who he is and why he goes to synagogue there.
Michelle, those were heartbreaking comments that members from the congregation gave you tonight earlier at 11 o'clock. I'm curious, you were at the service tonight. Did any family members of Nikki Gordon attend tonight's?
No, we were not able to find out. If they did, we did not find them. But she was described as a warm, loving person, very giving. Everyone we talked to just went on and on about how giving she was, how happy, that she had 3 adult daughters. They knew that she was a homemaker, and they just had wonderful, wonderful things to say about her, and they were in total shock. Some of her friends told me that they recognized her home from the aerial shots on the newscast earlier in the afternoon, and they knew right away that it had to be her, and they were really, really heartbroken by the news.
All right.
It's Michelle, a hard way to find out.
Thank you, Michelle. Both Temple Emmanuel, as Michelle mentioned, and the Bethel congregation of the South Hills will have police security this weekend. The rabbi at Bethel told his congregation to renew their commitment to their distinct traditions and, like Jewish people in earlier times, go on in the face of hatred and take precautions.
Doing some extra security this weekend just to reassure everyone. And the Scott Township Police have talked to us about it and everything. But beyond that, yeah, I think that we'll take a look at the building, make sure we're doing everything appropriate, and that should be it.
Rabbi Scheinlin has led the congregation there for the past 4 years. He tells us he has never received any kind of threat of violence.
A random act of brutality like this shakes a community to its very core. If you need to talk to someone or need counseling, we do have a list of those hotline numbers Michelle was talking about. Centers for the Victims of Violent Crime, area code 412-392-8582. Now, this number operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. South Hills Interfaith Ministries, 854-9120. And Allegheny Crisis Emergency Services. Again, this number is a 24-hour-a-day number, 1-888-424-2287. Right now, we want to bring in Nina Pineda for more on that hate crime angle we were talking about earlier in this hour. Nina.
Sally, FBI agents on the ground right now. What they have to look for is they have to talk to witnesses and see if anything was said during that shooting, anything that would show a hatred for these people because they were minorities. Also, a few moments ago with John Greiner, we saw them taking bags and bags of material out of the suspect's home. What they're looking for is anything that would prove premeditation based on ethnic hatred. They're going to be looking for any magazines, any books, any literatures to show if he was part of a hate group. Now, while the shootings at the synagogues is clear, that's a civil rights violation. And also, the neighbor who was shot, Anita Gordon, who was Jewish, the suspect apparently knew she was Jewish. So classifying those incidents as hate crimes may be easier than the other shootings. And those occurred at random places. And although it might seem on the face of it that those were all minorities, of course, the FBI has to prove that. We saw with Wilkinsburg last month that when Ronald Taylor said that he was looking for white victims, they couldn't just say that was a hate crime based on that. They had to go to his apartment and then see the racist literature before that was classified. So that will have to happen, Sally. Back to you.
All right. Thanks very much, Nina. We'll keep it here on Action News. We do have more news of the day, and we have sports coming up. It's going to be a big weekend at the ballpark here.
It's a huge weekend for the Pittsburgh Pirates fans. They get their first glimpse at one of the greatest players of all time.
That's right, Ken Griffey Jr. in town. Big crowd tonight. I was down at the ball game, and it was fun to see him. And welcome back, Junior. Sure, Ken Griffey grew up in Cincinnati and played most of his career in Seattle. But Junior's hometown is Donora, Pennsylvania. And here he is, Junior Griffey, 25,000 came out to see the slugger tonight, who's hitting just 200 on the season. Chris Benson does his part to lower that batting average. Griffey 1 for 4 with an RBI single. Then check this out. Jason Kendall right back at Pete Harnish, who holds on and lives to pitch another inning. The second inning, bottom of the second, when Harnish gets hammered by Brian Giles, his 5th home run of the season, and the Bucks up by a score of 1-0 after 2. As for Mr. Benson, well, he was breezing along. Down goes Pittsburgh native Sean Casey on this one. Strike 3. Benson allows 5 hits in 8 innings for his first win. Pittsburgh takes it this evening by a score of 2-1. Penguins and Flyers, game number 2 tomorrow. The Pens have the series lead. The puck drops Saturday at 3, and you can see the game only on WTAE. Enough rhymes now. Here's Pat Paris with more from Philadelphia.
The headline in today's Philadelphia Daily News says it all. One tough nut, as in Ron Tugnut, and the Flyers were not able to crack him last night in Game 1. 28 saves by Tugger, and the Pens have a 1-0 series lead. Last night's shutout is Tugnut's second of the playoffs, but some of his other stats are even more impressive. He's tops in the league with a goals against average of just 1.32, and he's also a league best in save percentage this postseason. It's a remarkable .957.
He's done a great job for us. He's a great guy in the room, and he's played tremendously through. He was the MVP in the first round with co-MVP with Yager, and definitely started off on the right foot in this series.
The last series helped a lot. I think you go into games relaxed and feeling good about your team's chances, and when you do that, you kind of cleared your mind where you have a positive mindset and you figure that you can compete against anybody.
But Tugnut knows his toughest test will come tomorrow.
I fully expect that. I think that we'll probably see their best game tomorrow, but that won't surprise me at all.
Hopefully he's going to play the same way all playoffs. That's a big help for us, and we are pretty confident we can score 2-3 goals a game, and if he played that the way he played right now, look out.
With the Penguins in Philadelphia, Pat Paris, Channel 4 Action Sports.
And finally, we broke the story last night, but the fallout continues from the firing of Jack McCurry as North Hills head football coach. Fans, friends, and former players from around the area and around the country are rallying behind McCurry, and his case goes before the North Hills School Board on Monday night.
The only positive thing that we have right now, in my perspective, is that we have a community that has been supportive. I've got some kids here that have been quite supportive, a coaching staff that's been supportive, and a teaching staff that's been supportive. So that's a positive.
And that's Action Sports, and we will be right back.
Coroner determined the two fetuses discovered in a campus bathroom earlier this week were stillborn and not aborted. A spokesman for WVU says the coroner's report found that the woman had a miscarriage. He says campus police are still trying to identify the woman, but that they do not suspect criminal activity.
Microsoft's top executives say the U.S. Justice Department's proposal to break the company into two competing entities goes beyond the scope of the case. Today, the Justice Department announced it will ask a federal judge to break up Microsoft. Chairman Bill Gates calls the proposal disturbing, not just for Microsoft, but for consumers all throughout the country. Thank you for staying up late with us tonight. Be sure to watch Action News Saturday morning beginning at 7 a.m. for continuing coverage of the spree.
Have a good weekend.
This has been a presentation of WTAE-TV, Channel 4 Action News. Taking action for you is WTAE-TV Pittsburgh. Right now, Channel 4 Action News is taking action for you.
Good afternoon. This noon, the latest on yesterday's tragic shootings as the picture of the deadly incident comes into focus. And we'll have the details on the suspect and word from some who knew him. And yet another shooting overnight, this one in West Mifflin. More on that in just a moment.
And your Saturday forecast looking pretty nice. Partly cloudy, breezy, and warmer this afternoon with a high temperature around 70 degrees. Good afternoon, everyone. Good Saturday afternoon, Ellen.
And good Saturday afternoon to you, Jerry, as well. And thanks to all of you for tuning in to Channel 4 Action News this noon. I'm Ellen Gamble. Well, 6 communities are picking up the pieces today after yesterday's devastating shooting spree. This latest tragedy comes just 2 months after the terror in Wilkinsburg. And again, many Pittsburghers find themselves asking why. Well, that's just one of the many questions today. Questions about what made the gunman go on this shooting spree, leaving 5 people dead in his wake. Now, this is the man whom police say is responsible. He is 34-year-old Richard Baumhammers. Well, first, though, a recap of yesterday's tragic events. Police say it all started in Mount Lebanon at 1:45 yesterday afternoon with a small fire at a house on Elm Spring Road. When firefighters arrived, they found a woman shot dead inside. And from that house, the suspect then headed a few miles away to Scott Township. And that's where he's believed to have spray-painted swastikas on the Beth El Synagogue on Cochrane Road. He then opened fire. No one was injured, but then the gunman got on Green Tree Road and headed to Carnegie. That is where he opened fire at the India Grocers in Scott Town Center. One man there was killed, another one injured. The suspect then continued on Green Tree to Forsyth and shot at the Ahavath Achim Synagogue in Carnegie. The synagogue was vacant. He headed to Robinson Town Center next and opened fire inside the Yafe restaurant, killing 2 people there. Police believed he then jumped on the parkway and then headed to Center Township, Beaver County, where he shot a male student at the C.S. Kim Karate Center, killing him. Police finally arrested the suspect, 34-year-old Richard Baumhammers, at 3:15 yesterday afternoon on the Ambridge-Aliquippa Bridge. And as we said, 5 people are dead. 63-year-old Anita Gordon of Mount Lebanon, 30-year-old Tao Pam, who worked at the Yafe restaurant, 34-year-old Ji Ye-soon, manager at that restaurant, 31-year-old Anil Thakur from India, shot at the India grocery store, and 22-year-old Gary Lee of Aliquippa, shot at the karate studio. Sandeep Patel remains in critical condition from a gunshot wound suffered during that shooting spree. And the suspect in this shooting, 34-year-old Richard Baumhammers, was arraigned last night, but only on the charges stemming from the attack in Beaver County. The counts, homicide and recklessly endangering others. Our Shannon Perrine was there.
What do you have to say to the victims and their families?
Stone-faced, Richard Baumhammers has nothing to say to anyone. Eyes distant, almost a smirk on his face, he strolls into his formal arraignment. Outside, people gather to see the alleged killer. They came for different reasons.
See, I want to see it closer for myself. That's what I wanted to see. I was kind of shocked because when I see it, it kind of scared me. It kind of made me numb.
Like he had no remorse. Like it wasn't no big thing about it.
As police prepare to take him to jail, Baumhammers waits inside. An officer asks him casually if he ever played football. In high school, he said, with a smile on his face. Offensive end. As he heads to jail, angry shouts from angry bystanders, but no reaction from Richard Baumhammers.
And that was Shannon Perrine reporting. Now, there's no word yet on when Baumhammers is expected to be arraigned on the charges related to the shootings that happened in Allegheny County. Well, just who is this man accused of these horrific acts of violence? Our investigative reporter Paul Van Osdal looked into Richard Baumhammers' history. He comes from a prominent family. His father is a well-regarded dentist who practices in Oakland and the South Hills. Richard Baumhammers is a 1984 graduate of Mount Lebanon High School, and people who know him tell us he was a loner there. He graduated from Kent State University and then went to law school in Birmingham, Alabama, moving on to Sacramento before settling in Atlanta to practice law. Now, the Georgia Bar's website says he was an active member as recently as last month. We also found Baumhammers on a website for Latvian lawyers practicing outside that small Eastern European country. He describes his expertise as immigration and international law, but it appears he was not active in the local immigration bar. We talked to several immigration lawyers here in Pittsburgh who say they've never heard of Baumhammers. Baumhammers has an email account with America Online, and we found some interesting information on his self-written profile. He says he lives in Pittsburgh and Latvia. He describes his hobby as international travel, and his favorite quote is, "This too shall pass." Now, Paul also reached Richard Baumhammers' sister. She is a doctor in Maryland. She said she didn't want to talk about her brother. Well, last night we spoke about the day's events with a criminology professor from Carnegie Mellon University, and he says it's too soon to tell just what motivated the suspect. And we don't have that soundbite for you, but when asked about whether or not this kind of violence was becoming a trend, the professor says at this point there's just not enough information to make a judgment call on that. And yesterday was supposed to be a day of peace for those of the Jewish faith, but for members of the Bethel Synagogue in Scott Township, that peace instead turned to violence. They knew from news reports about the swastika painted on their building, and they also knew the glass had been shot out of the front doors. But as the members gathered at the synagogue yesterday, it's what they found out later that was so much more devastating. One of their members, Anita Gordon, was the first victim in the shooting rampage. Many called her Nikki. They say she was in her 60s and a very active member of Bethel. Our Michelle Wright went to the emotional service last night as the Jewish community there tried to pull together.
The swastika on the outside of the synagogue and all of the shattered glass was just heartbreaking for Bethel members. But actually, it was the news they heard once they were inside that was much, much worse. An active member, Nikki Gordon, was one of the victims.
Glass and walls can be cleaned. This is not repairable.
Some of Gordon's friends watching news coverage put the pieces together.
She was a very good friend of mine. And of course on the news it didn't say what her name was, but we saw the aerial view of the house and I knew it was her. and she was one of the most beautiful people.
Members tried to deal with the shocking news. A young mother whose son goes to preschool here.
We don't come every Friday night, and this made us want to come. It made us want to be more observant. It made us think about who we are and why we do what we do, and it made us want to come tonight, and maybe we're going to come more frequently now.
A father whose son works here.
It's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. You never know when you send someone off to work whether they'll come home. You don't think about it, but it's pretty frightening.
And synagogue leaders say the message here is now unity.
You go forward, and as you look around, what you're going to see is the Jewish community coming together, as it does in times such as these. And we will have services this evening, we will have services tomorrow, and we will go forward.
Disaster restoration crews were able to replace the glass doors. They also managed to erase the swastika that was painted on the side of the building, but it will take a long, long time for the emotional scars to be erased. Michelle Wright, Channel 4 Action News.
And it wasn't just members from Bethel Synagogue coming together last night. Nearby Temple Emmanuel members joined them for their services, and even several non-Jewish community members joined the service as a show of support. Well, a random act of brutality like this shakes a community to its core, and today help is out there for anyone who needs it. Take a look at the screen, maybe write some of these numbers down. The Centers for the Victims of Violent Crime can be reached at area code 412-392-8582. They operate a 24-hour-a-day hotline there. South Hills Interfaith Ministries at 854-9120. And Allegheny Crisis Emergency Services, again, another 24-hour-a-day hotline for you there, 1-888-424-2287. And we'll have more on yesterday's tragic shootings from throughout the area. Up next, we'll take a look at how everything unfolded in the early stages of the shootings. And yet another shooting in our area, this one earlier this morning. Those details just ahead. In news this noon, I'm Ellen Gamble. 6 communities, 2 counties, 5 lives taken, all in just a few short hours yesterday. And this noon, the man accused in the shooting spree is behind bars. He is 34-year-old Richard Baumhammers. We continue our coverage of yesterday's deadly shooting spree. It all began in Mount Lebanon with a small fire at a house on Elm Spring Road. And when firefighters arrived, they found a woman shot dead inside. The community's reaction? Shock. Our John Greiner spoke with those in that neighborhood who knew the Baumhammers.
Rushing to answer a smoke alarm at a home on Elm Spring Road, firefighters found a woman shot dead inside.
Initially thought it was a fire victim. When some clues pointed to the fact that it wasn't, then we backed out and turned the house over to the police.
As relatives and friends learned of the death of Anita Gordon, everyone asked the same question. Why? Perhaps only because she was Jewish.
She's a very nice lady, and I don't understand what happened. I don't know who did it. If they did it, I honestly hope that they get their just deserves, because it's not fair.
Police charged her former neighbor with Miss Gordon's death, 34-year-old Richard Baumhammers, seen here in his Mount Lebanon high school yearbook photo. The home actually belongs to Baumhammers' father, a prominent dentist here in Mount Lebanon, but he spent a lot of time there, and among the things he did there apparently was to chat online with some others in the neighborhood. He chatted with Sheila Grenadier's 15 and 21-year-old daughters, but gave no clue of his apparent anger.
He was always pleasant and never said anything that derogatory about anybody, was always, extremely nice.
Baumhammers talked online about wanting to meet 21-year-old Shannon Grenadier, who's glad that never happened.
It scares me. I mean, especially, I'm Jewish, and it just, I never thought this would ever happen here. And it just, I don't know, it scares me.
John Greiner, Channel 4 Action News.
In other news this noon, a man is dead after a shooting in West Mifflin. This shooting happened around 4:30 this morning at the West Mifflin Estates housing complex. And police tell us the unidentified man appeared to have been shot several times.